In this tutorial, I'll show you how to create this GeoBoil effect using Cinema 4D's built-in tools. I'll show you the basics of setting up for standard Cinema 4D materials and also setting up this final scene in Octane. At the end of the video, I'll also talk about the materials used for this animation I posted to Instagram, which uses the same GeoBoil effect. Let me know in the comments below if there are any other posts of mine you'd like to see a tutorial on, and please remember to like and subscribe and you'll get notifications of when I upload new videos. Okay, let's get started. I'm going to bring in a platonic and I'm going to change the display to go around with shading with lines so we can see the mesh. Because we're going to be deforming the mesh, we need the higher the mesh the better really, and the more even it is the better. So I'm going to put this up to 20 segments to start with, and the way we're going to create these boils is with the spherify. So let's bring in spherify deformer, and I'm going to change the radius of 30, strength to say like 70, and then if I move it around, I'll bring it up to this corner here. What I want to do is have this first boil kind of pop out of this corner. So if we put it underneath the platonic, first thing you'll notice is that that does not look right at all. And that's because we just want to affect just what is going on within the spherify itself. So we can do that using a spherical fall off. So with the spherify selected, let's select the fall off, and our spherify is 30 in radius, so the field, we want that to be 30 in radius also. And then if we go to the remapping tab, the inner offset, I want to change that to 0. And then the contour mode, I'm going to change that to curve. Now I think our spherify is sitting a bit too far to the edge, so if I just move this along, there you go, you can see it's affecting it now, and we could probably, maybe we could even increase that in scale. So let's change that to 40 actually. Okay, so so you can see it's deforming it, and we can put that into a subdivision surface, and we can see, you know, it's we've got our nice little boil sticking out. And what I'll probably do is actually the platonic shape, so I get like some nicer edges on it. I'll probably put it into a volume mesher at the end and then apply these bits to it. But for now, we can go through the steps and use this platonic as is for the moment. So I'm going to just I'm just going to turn off the subdivision surface and we'll set up this animation. So I'm at 25 frames per second, 100 frames in total, so 4 seconds. This one I'm going to rename 1 because I'm going to make multiple boils, and this is going to be the first one. So I'm going to go to frame 10 on here, and I'm going to set the strength to 0. Then I'm going to go 2 frames along, and I'm going to set it to 70. Hang on, I didn't actually set the keyframe, so 0 and 70. You know, further along in the animation, maybe to, let's say, frame 80. Set another keyframe, 2 frames along, 0. We play that back, see our boil popping up, popping back, but currently we've got no bounce or that nice secondary animation. So we're going to do that using the jiggle deformer. So let's bring in a jiggle, put that underneath. And if we just press play on that, and what I'll do actually is just we'll just hide that. We just put the red traffic light on the spherify, so it's just hidden. So you can see it's popping up, but it's kind of a bit too crazy at the moment. And if you turned on subdivision, you know, you probably are getting some nice wrinkles and lines. And I guess it depends what you're after, but I just wanted a kind of cleaner bounce up, cleaner bounce down, but we want a bit of that secondary animation. So with the jiggle selected, I'm going to take the strength of this down to about 80. The stiffness, I'm going to up this to about 60. So we're kind of halfway house. You can see that it's kind of doing that weird twisting in on itself as it bounces. So that's because of the structural, because it's trying to keep the original shape. So I'm going to turn that down to 0. Press play. There we go, we've got that nice bounce, and then the drag is just kind of how it's kind of like easing in and out of that shape. So I'm gonna, if I upped it to 50, say, there you go, you see you get kind of a smoother transition between the two. I want it to be a bit more sudden than that, so I'm gonna make it 15, so we get that nice like bounce in and then we get a bounce out. And if I just put the subdivision on, yeah, you can see that nice bounce on the corner. Okay, cool. Right, so with that done, let's well, we can make some more. So when you're repeating this, you probably want to, like with the delay effector, it's best to turn the jiggle off. Moving the same one, so just going to name this number 2, and let's just move it into another position. And you want to kind of find the surface of the object. What have I done? Let's find it. Oh, there it is. I was way off. Okay, and you'll see it kind of is pushing in, and then you'll get to a point, and then it will start popping out. So it's a little bit of a fine art to it. But let's say we want to put one here. Maybe I want to make this one bigger, so I'm going to select this one and increase the size. I like how it's just slightly pushing those corners. And then I'm going to go to the timeline, and maybe, you know, I'll make this one come in right at the beginning and make it disappear a little bit sooner. So I want to get the kind of a bunch of them coming in and out. So get 1, 2, got the jiggle turned off at the minute, just so it's quicker for us to actually play it back. And then I'll do another one. I'll just do 3, I think, for the moment. So let's bring this in. There we go. Maybe we'll put this there, make that a bit smaller. And because I want this to be a loop, actually no, I don't want it there. I don't want it to kind of duplicate what that one's doing. Yeah, let's bring it a bit bigger. Now, because I want this to be a loop, if I go to my timeline, you know, I want it to loop back 100 back to frame 0. So I want to make sure that when they either bounce in or bounce out, that bouncing is kind of done by frame 0, so it comes back in. But so that's why I'm kind of ending these ones before, you know, 20 odd frames before 100. For this one, I think I'm going to have it, I'm going to swap these frames around so that that one's there to begin with, then goes, and then comes back in again, but maybe not at the same time. So those two. So let me see if I can push it by, we'll put it on like frame 85 like that. Maybe we'll move this to frame 30. Maybe I'll spread this out. I'll just make this one frame 15. Okay. So now we've got them coming in and out, and then what I'll do is turn off the subdivision, turn on the jiggle. You can see if that bouncing is kind of finished. So I think that all looks, yeah, okay, so that's all the bouncing is kind of done before we get back to frame 0, but we kind of get this randomness. And then another thing I found I quite like doing with this is just doing a few extra little ones and then just putting a vibrate tag on, so it looks like you've got these other boils that are kind of boiling around, but they're not bouncing in and out like these ones. Let's just save this, and we'll duplicate that one. We'll call this static 1, and we'll go to the timeline. On this one, I actually want to just turn off those settings or delete those keyframes. Change this, say, to 70, and jiggles off. And then I'm just going to dot around a few small little boils. Yeah, just make sure we're getting it in place. Maybe let's put it there. You have that poking out like that. Okay, and you could up the strength maybe on these smaller ones. There you go, so you get more like defined area. I'm going to copy that. Call it static 2. Let's put one here. And we'll do one more. We've got 3 static ones and 3 animated ones. This one I think of what our camera view might be. I think I'll put one over here. Oh, so I've grabbed the wrong thing. So let's grab all that. Let's move this around. So you can kind of just have a play with this. Let's push that out. Nice, so there you go, it's kind of sticking out. Put our subdivision on, you can see what that's looking like. So we've got our static ones, we've got those ones there, and then those static ones, so we can add some sort of like animation on those. Let's go to the Cinema 4D tags and go to Vibrate. And then I'm going to put a regular pulse on those, enable scale. Frequency, I'm going to say 0.25, and then amplitude, I'm going to say 1.1 for all of these. So it's just kind of increasing it by 10%. If I just turn off that, see, we just got this sort of these live sort of scales, and what you boils. And what we could do is say we'll take the top one, and maybe we'll say 0.9 instead. So this one's going to kind of be going the opposite way, like that. And then maybe that one there, we could have that going at a quicker speed. So we could say like 0.5. So it's going to scale up and down twice as much as the others. So that gives us some randomness. And then we turn on jiggle, all of those. It's kind of nice how these start actually interacting with each other. Cool. Right, so now this is a point where I'll probably make our platonic into a volume mesher. Now you could take the subdivision surface, but what I want to do is show you how you can actually color up the boils separately to the object itself. Okay, and to do that we're going to need kind of the dense mesh to be to effect. So you could do that by just making this editable. So you've got this editable mesh, but I don't like the way those corners are looking. What I'm going to do, if you haven't got Cinema 20 or above, then you can just break apart the subdivision surface and carry on the rest of the tutorial using that. But I'm going to take this out, and then I'm going to get a volume builder and mesher, put one inside the other, put the platonic in that. Then I'm going to make the voxel size 1 and put the smoothing on there, make that 1. And this is just so I can get this, see this clean, it just looks nice, it just works, and that's all I need. Okay, so made that editable, and now we've got this mesh that is a pretty even mesh and quite dense, and we can use our spherifys that we created, stick them on, and see they look pretty nice. I mean, this isn't going to go super quick, but it is working. And you could even smooth it up a little bit more. Let me just save this by adding in a smoothing, just to smooth out those edges a tiny bit more. So now we have that. I'm going to kind of work out how I'm going to set this up for the render. So maybe I'll kind of go for that sort of look, just have that in the middle. I'll bring in a camera, and maybe I'll go to this kind of portrait mode. Okay, that's cool. Save that. This would be my setup. Okay, now so we want to set this up so we can put materials on this. So we have like a main material on the object, and then a different material where the boils happen. So we're going to do that using a vertex map and a tension tag to kind of affect that vertex map. So let's take everything out of the volume measure. Actually, while I'm here, I'm going to put a protection tag on there, and I'll rename this platonic. Okay, let's go to polygon mode, and you need to make sure that all polygons are selected. And let's go to select, set vertex weight. We'll leave the value at 0, press OK. So that leaves us with a vertex map that's all red. And then vertex maps go from red to yellow, and the yellow in this case being where it's being affected. So to drive that effect, we're going to go to tags, just with the platonic selected. We don't need to be selected on the vertex map. Go to tags, and we want to go to character tags, and we want to get the tension tag. So the tension tag will be able to kind of set the initial state of the object, and then it will be able to tell like what is being affected, and then kind of pump that into the vertex map, and then we can use that vertex map as to in our materials to basically say this is material 1, this is material 2. So let's go to frame 1, and we don't want any objects within the platonic because we're just setting our initial state. So actually, no, sorry, we need to put the vertex map into the stretch map box. Then we're going to say fixed tension. So we've still got this red vertex map, and we're going to grab all of our objects, stick them into the platonic, and then you'll see we've got this yellow, which is where the object is being affected. Now, all these lines here, I've just realized, I think this is actually the smoothing tag. I think the vertex and the tension is because the smoothing is affecting the object, it's kind of affecting our tension. So I'm just going to actually delete that, and let's just kind of reset. Let's come out and go back in again. I think if we bring everything out, put it all back in again. Yeah, there we go. See, now we've got rid of the smoothing. We've got our clean vertex map, so we can see these are the areas that are being affected, and these are the areas that aren't. So I'm going to click on the our tension tag, and I'm going to lock it here, and then that means we can kind of select the vertex map and then see that while we change this amount here. So we can change this amount, which basically changes the blending, the amount of blending we have in between the objects. So I'm going to go with something like that. Let's play this through. See, and we can see as they're popping up, we can see the vertex map being affected. Okay, right. So that's that. So now we want to get pump that into some material. So I'll do it quickly in a cinema material. So let's just say new material. We'll just leave it a white. We'll just throw that straight on, and then another new material. And let's just call this one red, or make it red, and I'll throw that on top. And then what I'm going to do is maybe like just use the alpha channel, and then under texture, let's go to effects, vertex map. Let's click on here. We can drag the vertex map in, and now you can see our amount that's being affected. Now you see here it's quite light, so that's where we could go back to our tag and say actually we want to bring this in more, you know, and affect it more. But that's where you can have a play. You can have a play around and see how much you want that to be affected. You can bring it all the way in. Oh, you can see that's because our bulge is just bulging out there. But maybe you want it to be something like that. Okay, so that's in normal cinema. So you can, now you know how to use that. You can obviously have a play with that with cinema. But let's go into Octane and set this and see how we do the same sort of thing in Octane. So let's open the live viewer window, and I'm going to go to path tracing. Let's just press render quickly. And what we probably want to do is just delete these materials because we're not using normal cinema materials. Get rid of those. Right, I think the first thing I'll do is we'll bring in a HDRI environment just to like this. I go on my desktop. I've just got this room HDR object. That's nice. And then I'm going to bring in a stage. So let's just bring in a plane. I've done this a few times before. Just put a bend on it. I'm just gonna, yeah, I'll leave that as is. Just rotate that put a strength of 90 on there, and then rotate this 90. Yep. Say minus 90. Let's move that back. And I'm just gonna not scale up the bend, I want to scale up the plane. And then I just want to rotate this around. So kind of like a infinite background. Okay, I'll save that. Okay, so that's that set up. I'm going to put the lock on, view this full size, but what I'll do is just select an area. I just want to select this area to look at. So let's create a new glossy material, and let's pick a color for this. I'm gonna, maybe we'll go a purpley color. Drag that onto our platonic. Just want to see what that looks like. Cool. I'm just going to do a very simple material for this. I'm just going to add on a bit of roughness, like 0.2. And the main thing is just to be able to show you how we can do these boils and how we can make them look a lot lighter. So I'm going to call that main. And I'll get another material and I'll duplicate that material, and so let's just say I'm going to make it like a lighter version, like a light pink. Okay, and that's going to be the boil. So the way we're going to do that is actually by creating a mixed material. Let's get our mixed material, and we're going to pump in, I can remember the order to do it. Let's just say, I'll call this one boils. So we'll put boils in as material 1 and main in as material 2, and then we'll actually drag that onto our object. So for the minute it's just made everything the same. So let's open up our mixed material in the node editor, and what we want to do is actually use a vertex map here instead of this float texture. So let's delete that, and let's grab vertex map, bring that in, and we want to pump that into the amount, and then we can drag our vertex map and put it in. Oh, grab that, we can put that in here, and there you go. So now you can see we've got these two materials, our initial purple and then our boil, and then we can play again with our amount here to kind of blend between the two. Maybe you want to make it a lot lighter, something like that, so it's kind of a more even kind of spread. Let's go down to 0.5 for this so we can see what that looks like. Yeah, so we've got this more even spread. Okay, I'll probably put a color in the background. Let's just get a we'll do a diffuse material, and maybe we'll do something like an orange, make this stand out from the background. I'll stick that on the plane. No, that looks pretty ugly. Let's maybe a bit more yellowy, like that. I think I'll bring a light in as well. So let's go objects, nothing's selected. Let's go objects, and then we'll get a Octane targeted area light. let's move that off to one side. Let's just take the power down on that. I think I'll put one on the other side. Highlight. And I really don't like that background, so I'll make this like a pink. I think one last thing I'm going to do here is just on the main object, I'm going to, rather than this float, no, in the bump, I'm going to bring in an image texture. That's just to make it, make more difference between the boils and the main body of the object. So let's just go to the plugins, let's get image texture, and then I've got a load of images here. Let's just pick this one. Bring this in just to add, there you go. So you've got this kind of roughness on the object. Now I can go in and tweak it, obviously. I'm going to leave as is for the moment, but I might bring a light around it so we've got a bit more sort of reflection on the front. So let's grab that light and see if we can kind of tweak the positioning. Let's bring it above. Oh, you know what? There's probably not enough power. Let's whack it up a little bit. Nice, there we go. So you can see it's just highlighting some of that. Cool. So there's that object. So what I'll do is just quickly talk you through the materials and the setup for the milk carton that I did. Okay, so the setup for this object is pretty much the same as it is for the platonic that we just went through. We've just got more of these spherify objects. We've got 8 of them here, and then we've got like 5 or 6 static ones popping in and out all over. It's just we've got a more kind of complicated material being used, but it's actually not that complicated. So we've done the same thing again where we've got a mixed material that's been using this vertex map, and you see I'm just kind of very lightly showing through what's going on here. If I go and look at the main material, it's just got a blue for the stage. The cap is basically just an off-white, just diffuse material. But for the carton, if we've got a roughness, which is basically, actually it's easier to see in the node editor. We've basically got an image texture, which is adding our roughness on, and I'm just scaling it through the Y just to get the, just so I got the pattern that I liked, putting it into a gradient so I just get more contrast in it. And then in the medium tab, we've got a scattering medium. Let me drag this out a little bit. So I've just got a low density so that you can see it's just poking through there. And then I've got 2 tones of blue, this lighter blue for the absorption and a darker blue for the scattering. And that is it for that material. And then for the bubble material, it's kind of a simpler version of that material. It's the same material but with no roughness on it. And then in the medium, the scattering medium, I'm actually adding in an emission, so an additional tab. So these two are the same. The emission tab, I've got this texture emission, which is this light blue. It's got a very low power on it. It's just so I get kind of a more standout, but if you'll see if I up that, you see it really starts blasting. I mean, you could do something with this where you actually made them kind of a glowing object, and you could change the materials in the settings in the camera so you get a lot of glow off of these, some sort of like nuclear sort of canister or something. So that's basically the material set up for that. If you want to know more, like if you want to know how this carton was modeled, or you want to know more about the other carton renders I've done, then let me know in the comments and I will talk you through that. It was made using volume modeling as usual, but that's reasonably simple as well. So that's it for now. So I hope this was useful, and tag me in your projects on Instagram because I like to see what people do, and I will see you next time. Stay safe. Bye.